here. I have two distinguished guests, two entrepreneurs dealing with the needs of new society we live in. Like we are entering a digital era, and maybe we are part of it already. And these two entrepreneurs are dealing with the challenges in different ways. So please allow me to introduce Camilla Fayed, founder of Farmacy, and Kunal Kapoor, founder of The Luxury Closet. Let me start with Mr. Kapoor, who built this company, The Luxury Closet, and is dealing with the luxury, as I know, in e-retail from Middle East. So in your eyes, how Middle East consumers are different than other parts of the world? Like comparing the generations, like maybe you have seen 10 years ago, they were somehow different and they are changing. How do you observe this trend?
So I've been in Dubai for about 10 years. I like to describe Dubai by saying every time I leave, even if it's like for a week, and I come back, I find a new way to go home because something on the road has changed. I spot a new building. So there's like rapid construction. But which also, I mean, in another perspective, is I would say is that there's rapidly building new things, right? And they make a decision on what to build, and then they go about building it. And thus, like it's out with the old and in with the new. Yet there is how should I say, an emphasis to retain what they want Dubai to stand for and what they want their children to remember. So I think it's very interesting at the pace that the change comes into to society, and again the focus on trying to preserve the heritage of the region, the Islamic culture. So it's a very interesting interesting place to be. It's a melting pot. I think that's the second thing. So there's I think in the UAE 5 million people, and there's all kinds of nationalities. I think I kind of describe myself as an average expat. So I'm from India. I studied in the US and France. My wife is French. We met in Dubai and we live in Dubai. So it's very interesting. It's right in the center of New Delhi, which where my parents are, and Aix-en-Provence, which is where her parents are. And we both work in Dubai, and oddly, we both work in the luxury industry. I run a luxury company, which is I would say a sustainable luxury company, and then she works for Darth Vader, which means she works for one of these groups. She works for Richemont, and which they keep on producing stuff. They keep on producing stuff, and they keep on. I used to work for Louis Vuitton as well, and then my job as at Louis Vuitton was to sell more to the same people. That's what I would say. Don't try to sell. If you sell something to somebody new, it's going to be relatively inexpensive. You have to sell something to people who don't really need it. So, and that has built kind of also my introduction into the luxury, and kind of an introduction into the way my lens and my perspective on the luxury industry is, and the reason for our existence. And so the Luxury Closet is a marketplace for consumers to buy and sell luxury. Because the luxury industries, I think, is a bit unsustainable. On one hand, people keep on buying, and their closets keep on getting bigger and bigger, and these brands keep on manufacturing stuff, and then if they cannot sell it, they destroy it. So Richemont this year announced a $200-something million buyback on watches. It's a very unsustainable industry with two unsustainable cycles. And also very interesting that the Middle East is kind of symbolic of these closets. Right? The consumers have very quickly adapted to luxury as one of their values. And thus it's the new capital of luxury, and you see everything is luxury, and the word luxury also it's in our company's name, but it's also used every single where. If you want to build an apartment, it doesn't matter if it's an apartment for $100,000 or $200,000, it's a luxury apartment. So everything is luxury, and everything is luxury. It's kind of assimilated into the what is important for people, and brands are important for people. So.
Thank you very much. I want to move to another vertical, to Camilla's perspective, which is a really new, interesting initiative. She will be talking about her idea. How did you come to build this pharmacy kitchen, you call it? Why did you start it?
First of all, I started it for two reasons. Very much to begin with, it was for personal reasons and through a personal journey for wellness, basically. I had had quite a few health issues in my 20s and had done a lot of research, really as my own experiment, and discovered through the journey how fundamentally important plant-based eating is, and the massive contributions towards my health, but also towards the environment. And then secondly, I think creating Farmacy for me in the UK, first of all, as our flagship, I saw a huge gap in the market. There was really nobody pioneering this sort of mission. And 3 years ago, actually, when I opened, it was incredibly new. Yes, in the States, Australia, it was a popular trend, but in the UK and Europe, it was really lacking. And I think a lot of people, looked at me like I was crazy. I was opening a, totally vegan restaurant. Even my own family said I was crazy. But I think I, intuitively felt that if I was able to change my health and educate myself on an alternative way of nurturing myself, then I could definitely share that knowledge with other people. And the minute we opened, it was, thank goodness, a huge success. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Interesting. I want to go back to Mr. Kapoor. You raised above $18 million, something like that, for luxury closet, as I know. What type of problems do you solve, basically? Like, what type of problems do you see consumers can't deal themselves, and what type of intermediary role you play for them?
I mean, so going back to my last comment, which was that I see the luxury industry as inherently unsustainable. But also looking at not the industry, but looking at the needs of the people. There are people who have closets full of items. Just like some numbers, the Middle East specifically is the highest average per capita spend on luxury. It's the second highest valued average closet in the world. And then on the opposite end, there are people who dream of owning one of these products. And I used to work for Louis Vuitton. I worked in the store, which was very interesting. And I remember having one day a lady brought in like this beautiful yellow Louis Vuitton pochette in Epi. And she wanted to repair it because the zip had broken. And when I looked at it, it was 20 years old. Now it would be 30 years old because it's 10 years back. And all that happened, and she used it quite a lot, like maybe every day, was the zip just broke. That's it. And so we repaired it for her in a matter of a few weeks, and then we gave it back to her, right? And that kind of stuck with me, that there's these beautiful, bags and shoes are not meant to last a year. They're meant to last generations, right? However, that's not really what happens. So that was the need, and there was a lot of friction between in order to actually make this happen. And the friction was that how would sellers actually sell this? The buyers are not sure of the authenticity. So which is where we came in. We created a platform where we made it very easy for the sellers to sell, and we made it very secure for the buyers to buy luxury because we guaranteed the products. It meant we had to do a lot of work for the sellers and for the buyers as well, but that created the company.
Great, thank you. Camilla, what is in your eyes you see changing for millennials? Like we have seen our dads, moms, they were having their nutrition policies, let's say, in big names like this. And what do we eat, considering this generation, millennials? What is changing? What is negative? What is positive in your eyes?
I think, for me, fundamentally, what is positive is that people are, on a macro level, craving transparency. I think that the veil has lifted off a lot of these corporations. People are now not wanting to buy into, certain, food trends that, say, for instance, this old paradigm that we used to live in. It's very much kind of moving forward, and I think that the millennials are the ones creating change, and they want to know what's in their food. What chemicals are laden with, certain, chemicals and pesticides. People don't want to eat like that anymore. And I think that is, especially for us, a huge positive change, because I genuinely feel that we've been lied to for a lot of the time. And, if you look again around what's going on globally, it's, massive health epidemics. I mean, it's actually scary to watch the amount of, the cancer rates have gone through the roof. I mean, people are getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And I think now, finally, people are waking up to the fact that it might be the food that we're eating. It might be what we're putting in our mouth that is actually causing all these, catastrophic issues. And actually, it's a very simple science. And, my favorite understanding is, the Hippocrates quote, "Food is medicine." We've only known that way to eat. It's only in the past 40 years that we have been poisoning ourselves with these, unbelievable, crazy amounts of chemicals in our food, sugar. I mean, it's just, we're feeling the impact now. So, it's time for change, and it's a culture of change. And I think for me, that's, the exciting part of especially what I'm doing, is because it's really kind of moving towards a different culture, a different feeling of the way that we see food and the way that we see nutrition fundamentally, And
do you believe that it comes with the impact of technology? People basically, they want to understand.
Yeah.
Or it comes with some other sources, like people, you share information, as I know, maybe not many people knows about that. Camilla also wrote the book also. We'll have some copies, but they are very limited. I hope you will be talking about that also.
Yes.
And tell us about this book also.
Well, exactly. Technology has now, it's enabled us to really have an unbelievable amount of information. We cannot hide from this information anymore. And I think that's why this trend is growing so huge, is because there is so much transparency now. Everyone wants to know, and we can access information like no other time. So there's more research going in, but it's also down to the individual. So the individual is researching, understanding really what else is out there. So to your question, I wrote the book really just to share my research and really share the profound effects that it's had on a personal level to me. And again, everything I did and everything I created started at home. And I think that's also my message is, in everything that I do, is that you create change at home. That's where you start. The individual is the one to create the change. And that book really kind of personifies that, and that's, really why I wrote it. And to make it easy for people and not to alienate them thinking that, plant-based eating, veganism is a crazy, it's a crazy thing to do. No, it's actually incredibly simple. but it's about sharing that research and knowledge so people can understand and take it into their home.
Interesting. Keeping the topic about millennials, Kapoor, do you think they are really different? This new generation, like we call them Instagram society, Snapchat society, Tinder society, whatever you call. Are they different, or they follow the path that we have lived with technology, like when we entered first time to web, searching internet pages, etc. Google, oh nice, Facebook, amazing. Mm-hmm. So do you think there is a change that these youth millennials are shifting away from our traditional thoughts?
No, for sure. I think, and also I think it's this conversation and just taking onwards from what you said is very pertinent to the topic that we're discussing. So I mean, just like the way I now I'm looking at it and summarizing is that of course there's like the industrial revolutions, right? So, and using food as an example, and using my culture and the Indian culture as an example, we always had Ayurveda, which said food is medicine, right? And then there was the Industrial Revolution. So, and then there was like, well, I think the country was in a place where there just wasn't enough food for everyone. And then there was like the Green Revolution, the Industrial Revolution that actually made food much easier to be mass produced. And this is probably where my parents were, right? Now I am at the cutoff age for a millennial. I'm not sure if how much I identify with this, but I think that maybe my sister and my other cousins are probably rightly there. And then once there is kind of enough food available, I think we kind of finished that Industrial Revolution, or actually this is not exactly correctly overlapping, with too much environmental disaster. And then now that we're in we're in the fourth Industrial Revolution, and that's not just the internet and information, but let's just look at the third one, right? And then in the last 10 years or so, these millennials come about, and it's the information age, right? And then they go about kind of scaring everybody, saying, look what you've done, look what is happening. And then the people who are like my parents who lived the Industrial Revolution are just like, oh my God, what has happened, right? So there's an alarmist attitude, I think, and then they're saying pushing to go back all the way, saying eat right, how, and it's all these millennials kind of adopting this, how we used to eat, so it's so it's for sure it's very different, and it is information. I think they think they know everything, or they know what they read. Mm-hmm. And what they read is a matter of it's democracy out there. It's not you can read whatever is out there. So whatever they read, they act on it. So yeah, for sure it's different. I think that maybe in the fourth Industrial Revolution, what they read will be less democratic because there'll be bots out there putting filtering information and putting the right information out. Yeah. So maybe it will change again.
Yeah, great, thank you. And covering all these topics, Camilla, what are the key takeaways from your book that you wrote? For yourself and for the audience, for others, maybe you have different outcomes for different groups of readers.
I think the key takeaways for me, and really what I try and concentrate the information in the book on, is that there is no such thing as health or health food unless the produce that you're eating is organic. And again, it goes back to the understanding that, it's only the past 40 years that the new normal is conventional produce. We only ever farmed organically. And it's this, huge chemical revolution that we've had thrown at us in the past 40 years that has just changed society and their way and perception of what is good, healthy food. And good, healthy food to me is eating pure, good source of organic fruits and vegetables, not laden with chemicals and pesticides.
It's very hard to do that.
But they've made it impossible.
It's very hard.
They've made it impossible, and industrial farming now has, it's global destruction. And unless we can take the understanding that actually, no, we need to go back. We need to go back and do things the way we used to do things. I think that's how we'll create change.
And do you have any idea about the plastic recycled bags we use for drinking water, for having food? What are your views on that?
Well, I mean...
Because they are increasing.
Of course.
Every day we see a lot of this recycled...
it's scary.
Yeah.
It's really scary. It's really scary. But I think, again, for me, my keen interest is the plastics then, obviously dissolving in the ocean and then having an effect on, ocean life, but then also us ingesting the microplastics. If it's not in your water, it's in your food packaging. It's like you can't get away from plastic. And I think that for me it's a real issue. And then also creating models like Farmacy, for instance, that are, we're trying to create and show it's almost a new genre of restaurants because we are fully sustainable, plastic free, all doing things that are actually possible to do if you put your mind to it and if you're committed. And I think it's that commitment, level of commitment, that, well, number one, we really have pioneered that change.
Do you pay for this commitment as a thought leader and as an action leader? It must be, well, I'm sure you'll usher things for others.
Yes.
But don't you have to pay for this?
It's a long-term investment for me, and it's always ever been that. I refuse to give my customers any sense of, I would rather pay for that and know that in the next 10 or 15 years that we're doing the right thing for people. And I think it's just going that extra mile and our consumers then don't have to think about it. We are then providing them a platform for them to make it easy.
Mr. Kapoor, considering your this cross-continental background, do you believe that we have differences in terms of culture? For example, people in the Middle East, even for food, for purchasing goods, services, they differentiate themselves than others, or they are just same, like we are all part of this technology revolution, and in the future we will look like each other. Almost everyone is doing same things, managed by algorithms.
I think we're same but different. So yes, I mean, so for example, for me, like I said, I live in a country where I'm not born, and I married somebody who's not my nationality. My son is not my nationality. It's really weird. Just in India, you can't have dual passports. So now the question is, what is the commonality, right? So I do think there's a lot of things that are common. Family values are common. I think that's very, very important. Everybody wants better for their children. I think the television is common, the internet is common, information is common. So I find like my father-in-law and my dad talking about the exact same stuff. They always talk about Trump. So and we're in Dubai, and we see like this connection. So there really is a lot of commonality, I think. Yet, I mean, of course, there's differences, right? There's differences in culture. There's differences also in because I think India and France, that they're also not at the same level of development. Mm-hmm. So I also see in some ways one country being behind other, but leapfrogging. The next generation leapfrogging. So I see, for example, the mobile revolution in India, where they, skipped kind of landlines and skipped laptops and went straight to. So my nephew never had a laptop, but he knows how to, watch Netflix and do everything else. So yeah, I mean that's my perspective.
And Camilla, do you think that to have healthy food, or whatever you call like healthy nutrition, we need to be individuals rather than community, or we have to be community? because it requires a lot of push from family. Not everyone is can afford. Not everyone could afford these things. Like eat separately, because we live in certain social institutions, like family or under certain religion or under certain group of people. So, do you believe that we are becoming more individualistic in this approach, or we need to become more like everyone should be eating at the same time the healthy food?
I think it's a bit of both, really, but what I've seen in my own experience is very much a sense of community. I think that especially veganism is a culture of kindness. I think that it's, you know, the culture is, of course, not to harm animals. You're not harming yourself by ingesting certain meats and you know, processed products. And then, you know, it's also about, it's the kindness to the environment. And I think what we do come together on now is this, you know, love and huge awareness, like a surge, like we've never seen before in what's going on environmentally, climate change, animal agriculture. It's just devastating to think what's going on. And I think that aspect of things is very much bringing people together. And that, for me, creates community, and it's this kind of oneness of understanding that we only have one planet at the end of the day, and we all share it. So yes, of course, it's individual in a sense, but it's very much a huge global wake-up call that we all need to come together to save the planet. It's not about a hippie movement anymore that you would say in the 60s, you know, hey, peace and love, save the planet. It's a survival movement. And I think that's where I come from. It's like, actually, no, we have to do this. We have to do this. There's no other way. So it's definitely both. And
where do you see the solution? Is it, should it come from entrepreneurs, or is it a public-private partnership with governments, like creating awareness as you do, or is it the job of philanthropic foundations? So who should do this job? Like, basically what you do. Your job might not be, frankly speaking, like investor might not like that. Because of long-termism, because of saving Earth rather than themselves. So there are a lot of topics on that. So where do you see this right collaboration, right partnership, or right purpose owner? Like you are as an entrepreneur, how do you see that?
I mean, honestly, yes, I feel that it's my mission, and I've been, you know, very much, of course, committed to this. But actually, the people that will make the great change that we'll actually be able to palpably see and feel is the kids, our children, because that's, for me, they are the biggest educators. And unless we teach them, you know, the next generation and the generation after of how to, you know, look after this incredible planet that we're on, there's kind of no hope. So for me, it's more about educating children and schools and trying to make them understand, you know, how incredible nature is, and giving respect to that, and teaching them about these initiatives that will help them. So for me, it's about kids.
So should we do it in schools or?
Schools, I mean, anywhere,
so
government initiatives, whatever it is. But I think, you know, there's still the generation that feel, I mean, that's still got to go, I think. And then the millennials, and then afterwards, they'll have a real reinsurgence of love for this planet. And that's what we're feeling already. It's just not, we're just at the cusp.
Thank you.
This is a very interesting question. Yeah. I'd just like to add, I think that this is why I was asking her. I was like, because, you know, there's always a pioneer, right? And then I think that maybe I'd like to think about this like as a venture capital business. And the way I like to describe it is that there's always a pioneer, somebody who goes like, who sees the future, a visionary, who sees the future, and then tries to do something. But because they see the future, they come in here. Now, either they fulfill a need that either is undiscovered, or they fulfill a need that is going missing. But if it's a need that's going missing, normally you're too late. You know, you need to start a bit even before that. Or there's a massive change in in how consumers are behaving, right? So I think that this is kind of at the cusp of this. Once you do this, you find early adopters, right? But at some point in time, it starts moving beyond early adopters, and then there's like a greater market model fit, right? So that means it's not just the people who really, really care for it. It's becoming kind of normal to do it. And then there's market model scale, which means that there is a fit for it. That means there's a larger audience for it, and the economics for it works. And now the question is, how do you make everybody eat sustainably, right? I don't think we're there yet, but I think that we're probably at the market model fit because there is no longer the early adopters.
Yeah.
Before moving to final questions from the audience, I would like to ask about the future. How do you see, Mr. Kapoor, how do you see future of your venture, and how would you be dealing with the new generation? What will you change in the future to deal with them? Like, you have something in your mind probably that, okay, we have done something up to now, it worked well, but I'm thinking to change something in order to feed their needs, basically.
So I have a statement in mind. Maybe I'll start with that statement. So I think like, we're talking about the past and the future, and then there's normally a kind of a conflict or a struggle moving from past to the future. And then while I was looking up the definition for like culture, one of the definitions I came across was respect for something that you didn't create. And I was like, that's so interesting. So it's, you didn't create it, you live in it, but you respect it. And then normally also means that you live in it, you didn't create it, is it really for you? And then when it's not for you, you find something that is for you and you introduce that, and then you kind of break the old, and then the culture kind of changes, right? So I think that, what's in the future is constant change. That's what's in the future. What's in the future for the Middle East and the industry that I work in is, I think, more people shopping online, because I think about a third of our customers have never bought it from anywhere else. So I think more people buying pre-owned for sure, because for the industry, this is one of the best solutions in order to be sustainable. I think that it has, so this kind of resale industry is kind of becoming a very large scale, because the economics of this suddenly work wonders. And what's happening is, and a really good example is that what's happening in the US is that kids are going crazy buying and selling sneakers. It's completely mental. There's like 2 companies in the US who raised like $50 million each to do sneaker trading. And that's like, it's slightly probably an outlier. I don't know how long it will last. But it shows you that this, can be profitable. It can become an industry, it can become a business, and it can become, I don't want it to go too far. Because then you start destroying what it was meant to be, right? But just more change and more adoption, and yeah.
Thank you. And Camilla, how do you see the future of pharmacy? What do you want to do with pharmacy in the future?
I want to do a lot of things, number one. But I think my main focus is really to create a new restaurant model, and show people that it's really possible to create a fully sustainable, holistic business that is also, it's giving back. It's an initiative, I think, more than anything else. And I've always seen it as that. And very much the focus on, I also run a farm. So it's a fully biodynamic farm. And
that's pretty cool.
Thank you, yeah. So it's fully sustainable, and, we farm like very ancient methods, but actually there's ways of now incorporating technology with these ancient methods of farming. And I think that is something that I'm incredibly interested in. And wherever I open a pharmacy, Actually, I will be opening a pharmacy out in Los Angeles next year. We will be, marrying agriculture with the restaurant.
Excellent.
And I think that for me is the main focus, and creating new models.
So you are dropping off these intermediaries in the business.
Exactly.
Who is creating something that we don't like, or like healthy food doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And okay, this is quite understood.
Yeah.
I hope everyone.
It's closed. It's
Yes,
a closed circle.
It's like farm to table, right?
Basically.
Yes.
That's a nod to the name too.
Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to take 2 questions from the audience, if he has any. Do we have any questions from the audience? If not, then you have one.
Regarding the health part, I really subscribe that, and even for my own research. I literally lost 15 kilos in 6 months by understanding that a keto diet and the understanding of all the PubMed research that I made really drove for, and understanding that why my grandmother and grandfather really lived for 80 years old, because they live in a farm for their lives. And my overview about that is asking you also what's your view about homegrown meat, and regarding the chickens, the rabbits, and all the meat that is grown in home, if you did any research or see the results in other people about what it might conduct. Because from my own perspective is that homegrown meat, and also from the human past, is part of our creation and part of our environment.
I fully believe that animals are part of, the incredible intelligence of nature. We cannot farm without animals. There's no such thing as farming without animals. And I think that it's the way that you farm. I think the monocultures that are basically destroying the farming industry now is the real issue. What I love about biodynamic farming, it's all about companions. So the understanding that nature needs each other to thrive and survive. So, I personally don't eat meat, but I truly believe that, well-sourced, happy cows, or whatever you want to call it, that are eating good soil, nurtured soil, and eating grass from nurtured soil.
Same plants that you eat also.
Yeah, I mean, there's no issue with that, and again, it just goes down to the deeper level of, say, soil quality or whatever it is. So, yeah, I mean, it's hugely important.
So I think...
Can I take another question for her?
Yeah.
What about food tech? What about making... But because it's supposed to be, some of this is supposed to be sustainable, right? Making meat in a lab, or I don't know, you can make a lot of stuff. It's not something that I really agree with. I think it's just another form of processing food. And I think I have, some of my kind of activism comes from, it's just another method of ingesting highly processed food. And anything, I always kind of say, anything that's touched by man is, some sense not really respecting nature. And I think, you've got things like Impossible Burgers, Beyond Meat, doing incredibly well, knowing that there's a real need and want for this, because it's offering I suppose it's offering an alternative to, meat, which I think is great because people will eat less meat. But I think you're going to look in the next 10 years and see... Find something else wrong with it, maybe.
Unbelievable health issues. Yeah. It's all hybridized synthetic wheat protein that's been made in a lab. I just don't think it's common sense. That's not nutritious. So, yeah. That's
a deep philosophy. Thank you very much, Camilla. And thank you very much for Mr. Kapoor. Guests, allow me to thank our panelists.